Hi there, this is Shauna from the Foil Fox, and I'm here on the Paper Tray Ink and Ink to Paper YouTube channel, and I'm sharing some brand new Stampin' Die sets. These are from the November release, and this one's called Woodlands, and it has these wonderful canopies of trees, along with a tree that's kind of a Christmas tree-like, and then a lamp post and some lights, and it just makes a really nice, beautiful forest scene. And here's the matching die set that goes with it that cuts out all of these goodies. And then I'm going to be using one more set called Dear to Me. It has these really adorable deer and some foliage and a sentiment, and it has a matching die set as well. So to get started, I'm going to show you the papers I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using two panels that are 4 1/4 by 5 3/4. One's going to be ever so slightly smaller. I'll show you around the edge there, very tiny, and I'm going to mark an X on it just so I know which one's the tinier one. A larger piece of white cardstock, a piece of Paper Tray Ink fine linen, and aqua mist. Both of these are Paper Tray Ink papers, and a card base when folded is 5 by 6 1/4, same size of that aqua mist. Now I'm going to cut out, show you all the things I'm going to cut out. I'm going to cut out one of these deer out of the fine linen and all of those goodies from Woodlands. And then I'm going to also use the banner from the Winter Magic. I don't know if you remember it, but it's this great pop-ups Christmas kit that it has this banner with some sentiments, and it has the die that matches it. And you can see I cut one out of white cardstock. And now I'm going to take the one panel that is 4 1/4 by 5 3/4. Remember, you can make it any size you want. I'm just calling out the sizes I did. And I'm using a die, a rectangle die that's 3 1/2 by 4 3/4, and I'm cutting out the center so that it'll give me a nice white border. So you can see I have a white border there. That worked out great. So now I put in my stamp positioner all of those pieces of Winter Woodlands. I'm not going to use all these pieces. I am going to use the snowbanks and these canopy of trees, but I'm going to just right now ink up the canopy of trees. And I have this chucked in there, and they're all mounted just to fit over it perfectly. And I'm taking some soft stone ink cubes from Paper Tray, and I'm inking up the large canopy. As you probably know, all of their inks coordinate with their papers, so they all color match. But I'm using soft stone here, which is a very light gray. And I'm going to ink it up several times just to make sure I get a really nice impression. That's the whole advantage of using a stamp positioner, isn't it? So that we're able to do that in case it doesn't stamp right the first time. I'm just going to stick that, make sure it's all stuck in there right, and then stamp that down again. And then we're going to go on to the smaller canopy. I'm going to make this one a little bit darker because it's going to be further into the forest. I'm using weather vane for this and stamping that all over. And I'm also going to restamp it, so especially down near the bottom of the trees, so it's a little bit darker there, and then going gradually, very gradually, going a little bit lighter as we go up. And with those pieces done, then we're going to move on to the next stamping. Here's the little deer that we cut out, and this one again is out of fine linen paper, but I'm using cocoa bean ink cube, and I'm going to ink up his little legs and his antlers. He's an adorable deer. I'm not going to do much else to him. Just having this little bit of a contrast is, I think, just enough to show off our deer. And with the antlers all stamped, I'm going to move on to the banner. I'm going to put a little bit of repositionable tape on the back from a tape runner, and so it'll stick to my surface using oodles of anti-static powder. so that I make sure I have enough there and the embossing powder doesn't stick where it shouldn't. I'm stamping it up really nicely with Versamark ink, turning on my light box so I can see the outline of it, and I'm going to stamp this banner down. I'm going to sprinkle it with some gold embossing powder. This is Hero Arts embossing powder, but of course you can use any embossing powder you would like. And I'm using this color scheme to be a very subtle and elegant color scheme, but I think it'll work very nicely for lots of them. I did try them out with reds and greens, and they were very pretty as well. So you just let your imagination go wild. I'm going to use a poker there just to hold it down while this embossing powder gets all good and melted. And now that the border is stamped, we're going to stamp the sentiment. The nice thing about this banner stamp and die set is that it does have the 3 sentiments, Merry Christmas, Season Greetings, and Peace on Earth, and they are all arced perfectly to fit into this banner. I am using Season's Greetings for this particular one, but any of them would have worked very nicely. And I used more anti-static powder there to make sure I had enough, and then stamped it with Versamark ink, and now I'm going to heat emboss it again with the gold. And now, that's done, there's a little bit of a border to this, and I wanted to accentuate it. And so I'm going to take a couple of Copic markers to do this. I'm using YR31 for the light color, and it's a really nice complement with the gold. And then I'm going to go in for the shading and using E84. You can see them up there on the screen. And there's just those two. It's just really easy coloring. It's just enough to accent it. And now with that, a few of these items, I have the white card base and then the aqua mist. I'm going to put some double stick tape on the aqua mist. And remember, this one covers the entire front. So in this case, it happens to be 5 by 6 1/4. Because that's the size that I chose to have it. I did want a nice wide border. And then I'm using the white panel that we have left. That's just slightly smaller than 4.5 by 5 3/4. And I'm going to take some glue dots and I'm going to use those to glue down the first little small canopy. And we're going to start building the scene. I'm using glue dots because I didn't want it as high as foam tape, but I did want a little bit of dimension. The other advantage of using these is you can kind of roll them up and it does stick up, but you can get them in little tiny crevices, particularly when you have an intricate die like this, it's very handy. Now I've just kind of lightly layered these together to make sure I have that in the right place. Now I know I do. I'm going to take that tree. Now there's 2 stamps to the tree. There's one that is a background stamp. I am not using that one. I'm only using the top one. I've put lots of anti-static powder on there again, and I'm stamping it with Versamark ink. And I'm going to gold heat emboss this. Again, you can use any color you'd like. I think it would be very pretty with an aqua or kind of greenish aqua tree in here. But I chose to go for the very elegant and understated. I hope you can really see how pretty this gold is. It's really, really, really beautiful. But I know that the camera doesn't always show off its true beauty. Now with that done, I'm going to put some double stick tape and I'm going to mount it onto our card base right in the center, making sure I don't have any little fur pieces from my very furry kitties that love to go in my craft room. And now that I have that in position, I'm going to take some more of those glue dots and I'm going to put those on the back of the bigger canopy. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to kind of roll them up and stick them. And you think that that doesn't give you much dimension, but it really does. It's just enough. It's not so much as foam tape, but it's just enough to give it a little bit of dimension. So I'm going to stick that down. I'm going to make sure I get it in the right place by trying out the frame again, and that seems right. So I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to take some fine linen ink. Now I know you see weather vane there, but I thought I would use weather vane and fine linen, but in the end I only used fine linen. And I'm just taking a little tiny blending brush, and I'm just smudging on a little bit of this ink so that it looks like there's this little pathway to the tree. And now we're ready to put our frame on there. The first we need to put our snowbanks. There are these snowbanks that you can cut out that come with the winter woodlands, and I would just put that frame back on over it just to see where those snowbanks should go, because I wanted to make sure that they were showing through and just in the right position. And I'm just lightly gluing those. And now I'm going to put the frame on. Off camera, I put foam tape all the way around my frame. And I'm just going to stamp this, or excuse me, just place this on top. And you can see why I wanted the other panel underneath to be a little bit smaller. Didn't want any of it to show outside of our border. And then a little foam tape on our deer, and a little foam tape on our banner, just on the ends. And there we have it. I'm really pleased with this design, and what's nice about it is you can use it with any color scheme that you would like. This one I am going very subtle and kind of that elegant look, but it was so pretty when I tried it out with some greens and some reds as well. So I really encourage you to try this out and to see what color schemes you come up with. And I'm sure that they will turn out really beautiful. I want to thank you so much for you joining me today. I hope you did enjoy it, and if you did, please give us a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. And here are a few of the items we use: the winter woodlands, the deer to me, and some ink cubes. You can pop over to blog.inktopaper.com for a supply list, but you can also go to foilfox.com where we have a complete supply list, and we have also all of these supplies as well, and oodles more inspiration. I want to thank you so much for joining me again, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.